36.8. And the time is 2025-10-26 at 0914. Just make sure my mic is coming through. I don't know how much of my computer fan is going to be coming in at it all, but it looks like it's kind of registering. What was it? $36.8. Okay, so it is very consistent. It's actually usually it bounces between two. It's 98.24, so it's still a bit elevated, at least from there. Try the other positions. It's like 36.9 to 7. It's not very accurate here because of my hair, I think. It's like an entire degree Celsius or more lower. So I don't think that really works for me. I think that one's for infants. And this is a pretty powerful thermometer as well for like body temperature checks, because it can go up to 8 centimeters away. But I don't think that's very sufficient penetration through hair and or gel like I usually have in my hair and stuff. I have a couple other thermometers too, but oh, it's a 2.2 degrees Celsius accuracy. Okay, so then assume it's 37.1 degrees or 37.2. That would be 98.96 or 97 or 96 respectively. And I had a 38.1 earlier, so that would be a 38.2, which is within the range of 100.76 to 100.58. That's very high for me. Very, very high. And I've had, I guess this, I just haven't been checking the temperature as much because I probably was doing worse for almost the whole month of October, maybe like past the first week, you're into the first week, and then now. But I felt, and I had 100, yeah, I had 100 degree, probably 101 on the day of the, let me check my calendar to make sure, but the day of the 14th, I think. Yes, the day of the 14th at 9:28 a.m. I saw Dr. Grant Collins and his advisors and professor at North Oaks at their resident clinic. Looks like an outpatient teaching clinic to me of some sorts. I don't know if that's completely accurate, but that's what I describe it as, and probably have it described it as. It looks like that. I got the flu shot that day, but I don't believe my condition worsened due to my flu shot. But then 2 days later, there was a significantly taxing and probably like too much for me to handle law enforcement response. And on the 15th there was it well, but I don't think that was that taxing. I think on Wednesday when they responded to me because of my mother coming over, they handled that very, very well. And then that with like minimal contact between me and any other persons, I barely had to do anything, and it was resolved very quickly. And that helped a lot. That was a lot of like physical stress off of me, to have everything handled like outside and it just to work out. It's probably one of the best ones they've done so far. That was good. Following day was not good. I had been cleaning and stuff like I usually do after my mother comes by, just to try to make sure I get less sick and things. And usually because it just tracks in a ton of dirt and things, which isn't necessarily her fault. It's just there is footpaths and things here, and dog walking. It's just, it would be like going on kind of like a trail or something in like a park, for even the sidewalks. So your shoes are just going to be a bit dirtier than they would be if it was like all inside of like a hospital or like a mall or like an airport or something that would like have things designed to where wind would constantly keep most dust, because like in dirt and in mud that would stick to you away. It's just not that way here. And since they aren't getting out of the car and then coming right up to the door because it's a condo, that's just how it is. So that's always been the case, and so I try to do my best with that. And I probably shouldn't have been cleaning just because of the flu shot and because of the fever. But when I have a fever, I usually, the pain and stuff associated with it, I find it a decent time to do things like that sometimes. So that's why I do that. So I was doing that for a few hours on the 16th. And when I do things like that, it helps me to notice like how well like the 1,300 milligrams of acetaminophen with nothing else with it is working and things like that, because of like whether or not I forget certain parts of a task, leave lights on, leaves fans on, intended to leave lights on or fans on due to ventilation, open or close doors, that sort of thing. Since I'm the only one who lives here, at least, that helps a lot to notice like when I'm supposed to be taking more fever reduction type medication in general, to where much longer I need to like avoid certain other medications if that was necessary, et cetera, like drinking more water, things like that. It's like a way to gauge activity, because just sitting down is not necessarily going to do that in the winter here, for me. And this is basically winter enough, it's cold enough. So if I'm still like warmer, if the chills are significant, and I can check the temperature downstairs, and it's the time of year that air and heat are also not coming on very much because I'm making sure they don't, then I can be downstairs more than usual without just getting a cluster migraine headache if I'm not like wearing headphones or something. So since that's like the case, it's a lot easier to check things. Like, you know, if I can tell if I have ringing in my ears instead of trying to actively prevent that, because that's a symptom I was told to like watch out for, so stuff like that. So I finished like 3 hours of cooking or cleaning and stuff, and that day, about which is a lot for me, but is I'm not like, I wasn't staging it between different days or anything like I would usually do. So I was just doing as much as I could that needed to maybe get done, just in case I didn't have time to do anything going forwards, which I assumed I wouldn't. But I wasn't actually considering what happened on the 15th at all while I was doing anything on the 16th. I didn't think about it. It was like behind me. That's usually how things go, especially if it's a good resolution. I just assume that, you know, that's the status quo and that that'll continue, and that that's not, I'd rather that improve, but that's not bad. And then when I was in the shower, taking a shower, I usually take long showers, nothing else, because I need to relax muscle tension so that I don't get injured, because of my frequent shoulder dislocation and major surgeries for that, to also reduce the the need to use the 5% like lidocaine patches, especially while I have a fever, because I just would rather reduce that a bit, and spasms and things that could happen with that. So standing in the shower, and while I was in the shower, law enforcement entered the building and entered my condo and then came upstairs as though there was some sort of emergency, and you know, just caught me unawares. Like, there just wasn't any notice. It seemed very clear to me that they didn't have the full picture, which is why I wasn't like apprehensive whenever I was like talking to them and stuff. It seemed to me like something was wrong, just because they didn't like immediately tell me what was wrong, like, you know, fire, no, you know, et cetera, et cetera. It wasn't like something like that, like there's not a gas leak, here, like, here's a towel, let's like get you outside or something. It wasn't that. I was pretty stressed initially just because of the fact that my mother had initiated a false like mental health confinement earlier in the year, but they handled, the law enforcement handled and brought me back home here in regards to that. But that was still very stressful. That was on Easter Sunday, and that's always going to be something I'm worried about. And, you know, just in, you know, worst comes to worst, just because of the past, like, of what has happened because of that, and physical damage to my health, in the severity of those circumstances. But I was a lot more like at ease on the 16th because of the fact that the law enforcement that was on site and present talking to me, that saw me in the shower and stuff, because I was in the shower, and they let me wait to, you know, get dressed and dry off a bit and stuff. Not fully getting ready or anything, but I made sure to mention, like, I don't know, multiple different ways or multiple times, you know, should I get my shoes on, things like that, like, should I, like, you know, indication if I was gonna like reach for like pants and a belt and stuff, or if I was just getting like less ready, kind of. And they made it clear, like, by just, you know, body language and words and stuff, that I wasn't going anywhere, which is very reassuring, because they of course know my history of, you know, having these things happen to me because of my family circumstances, and that. But overall, it was a very long response because they took me downstairs and, just weren't really aware of the whole circumstance through the whole time. They started yelling and stuff, but they were clearly frustrated, I think, not really at me, but like at the whole circumstance. And I think, that's also because they listen at the same time to their radio and stuff and information they get from that. And I'm pretty sure they were just, led to believe something entirely separate. And then they just had, to respond, I guess. And that was how it was observed to me, then. I also probably should have told them I had a fever. I don't think I actually said that at all. I didn't think about that. That was the whole, like, part of me having a fever and probably not being even healthy enough to speak with them. I didn't think about that. I didn't think about the context of possibly getting them sick. I just, like, went along with it. I shouldn't have done that. But we were in contact for way too long. And since I had already had a fever, I know I probably didn't get sick from them. But that should have been more of a priority from me on my part. That might have helped the circumstance for them to understand what was kind of going on. And, like, the nature of why that might be suspicious, because I'm fairly positive on the 15th when I think I spoke to my mother, and I'm fairly certain I didn't review the video or audio for that day, but on the 15th I was live streaming when she came over, and stood outside my door and wanted to talk with me and stuff. And I'm pretty sure I told her about the appointment and my flu shot on the 14th and the fever and stuff, and just because I generally would. So, but I don't know, if at that point she had been contacting law enforcement to initiate whatever happened on the 16th to happen. I'm assuming not, and assuming it probably happened before the 15th, because on the 16th of October, it just felt like whatever she did, it happened before that. And I only know she did something because I pay for a contract with the sheriff's office through ADT for response and stuff, and I didn't check, then and there, just because I didn't bother anything like that. That wasn't part of what I was, thinking of. It was more of like, okay, law enforcement is here. It might still be an emergency or something. So I just didn't do anything. And I had trouble actually getting into contact with ADT when they called me on the phone to silence the alarm, which I shouldn't have silenced. I should have let them respond to. That should have been an indication to me that there was something very wrong. I'll make sure to keep that in mind in the future. That was very unusual. Also, I think the color was different too, but I could have just been completely wrong because I had a fever. And that may have been because of how things had been, because I had checked the security, like, camera footage, like, a week later or more, and saw that for sure, and I'm not sure why, but just for sure, my mother and her usual friend were present and enough to at least open the door initially. So that tells me she probably was the cause of the whole thing, for sure. And not just, like, kind of suspect that, but, like, I'm not gonna say that was guaranteed, but I think it was for sure because of that. And that was a very bad thing to do. It negatively affects me, her, our family, my family's ownership of the property, the safety and security of, like, just in general everyone. It's just very dangerous to put law enforcement in that kind of circumstance. I don't know what she did, but it wasn't. If it was someone who wasn't me, the deputies, they could have just gotten shot because of how things were. It just, I knew them, so I wasn't, I wasn't going to do anything, and I'm not that type of a person. I've got a lot more, I don't know, I perform a lot better than most people probably could ever claim in those kind of circumstances than even them, most of the time. And I've had a lot of those types of circumstances in my life. And that's just a fact. And I've also, the whole time, my health has been poorer than everybody else around me almost 100% of the time. Basically, unless I was at or near the infusion ward in children's. If it wasn't that kind of a circumstance, which there has been things every so often, because it's just, those things can happen. Someone walks in the wrong door, stuff like that. I was more able to handle it. It was automatic, kind of. But it doesn't mean it doesn't very severely degrade my overall health. And on like the 17th, the 18th, and especially like the Monday, what was it? Like Monday, I noticed it took till Monday the 20th for me to be able to kind of like try to interact with people, which is another thing I try to use to gauge how I would engage with people and like general well-being, especially if I have something what I suspect would be a fever, because if I have, it's just how it is. Just because cancer patients react differently usually to having a fever. Some symptoms I'm not going to get, sometimes I'm not going to get any, but there are other indications that I know what to look for, kind of. And my speech was, at least that night, was very slurred and difficult. Slurred, kind of, but not entirely slurred. Difficult in like communicative extents. I was still able to get the message through because of the context of like a game, like League of Legends, but because of that being kind of like a sport, it's not that difficult. But compared to how I usually am, everybody could tell. But no one was saying anything to, about it, because they could also tell, and they know my circumstances and things. But even I was mentioning it out loud just because I wanted them to know that I understood that I was being more difficult to interact with, and that I appreciated like them, sticking it out, kind of a thing. But I wasn't gonna this wasn't like normal for me, and I wasn't gonna make this normal for interacting with them. Because I didn't find that, I wouldn't find that acceptable. Because I know they probably know by now that I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I'm not interacting with anybody like that, just because of my health circumstances are that severe. But I always am the type of person to take a step back and not do certain things if it wouldn't be where I would want it to be for others to do it too, I guess. And I'm pretty kind of lenient on that. I'm not really gonna mind or say anything if they probably had like one or two drinks since like was in like college or something. But like I was significantly like, different in speech than I usually would be. And I wasn't actually like causing us to lose the game or anything, so I was just, but that is a significant symptom And I was on Tylenol, so I was making sure to also say things out loud so that other people could remember, just in case I asked in the future, or like if I did do it multiple days in a row or something, other people could catch a much more severe like previous interaction, like if I had a stroke or something and then on the 20th or something recovered enough from the stroke to be able to speak at all. Things like that. Just, that's why I have a habit of doing certain things in a certain manner like that, just in case. And it's very obvious that I do. When I do it, that's part of it. And I just like called it like, to go to sleep and stuff, or very early, very much early, even though I was still on my medication. And not just the medication to reduce fever, but like my normal medication for my narcolepsy without cataplexy, and that if I'm taking that to do something social, and like I'm supposed to dedicate time to do every day, then other people usually also slot time to just, it might be extended from what they usually would, simply so that they could be with me for a slightly longer period of time, because they know that I'm not going to be there in like 2 hours. And so they might push off dinner for like an hour or so. That's usually how things end up working out with relationships over time for me. And it works out well for games like that and things of that nature. And I'm fortunate for that case, but I was just not doing very well at all. But by 21st, I guess, which I had an appointment with Dr. Berdermo, my first appointment with him at the same office for nurse practitioner Ortling for dermatology. The acetaminophen, same dosage, was able to work better, and am I even in the camera still? Yeah, and it was able to work better, and or something, and that appointment went very well. And I spoke about the fever and the other symptoms and stuff too, and it was just, that went well. We did the first round of the UV treatment, which I did, which, as it does decrease swelling, I think it did, and I think that helped, like, and was an immediate assistance. Not that I probably had much swelling, I'm too thin for that, but any amount is just gonna affect me significantly, especially with like enterology, ENT kind of stuff. And I do think that helped, if not for anything else than that. And I am scheduled to do another one of that on the what does my calendar say? The 7th, to follow up with just nurse practitioner Ortling, but the same office and stuff. And they're following me for melanoma, so they'll be able to perform that treatment there, just because of the fact that they have the expertise to constantly monitor even more aggressively for potential melanoma interactions due to the type of a treatment it is. But I think it worked. So I'm looking forward to continuing that every 3 weeks or so, like planned. Especially if that can, without any drug potential interactions and things with like ulcers and stuff. Like, I'm not supposed to be on like too much ibuprofen or at all regularly. That I'm barely supposed to take it ever, just because of the causative effect of it guaranteeing me have ulcers again, like my previous ulcers due to my chemotherapy, and how difficult that was to recover from, and how much that can affect me, and bleeding and stuff like that. Having something else that can solve other problems like that's not going to affect other body systems, that's very good. So that's a good thing to continue with. And that was the same like week, and I went like left the appointment stuff, I was doing worse, and then stuff, and then but not like extremely worse. And then the second that the acetaminophen completely wore off, and I had I had to reschedule my which was like 10:30 or so. I had just found out that day that I had a long-term personal care LDH Louisiana Department of Health assessment like that day. I got the letter that day because it was received the previous night or that morning, very late. It's just how it is, and I actually don't think it was in the mailbox the previous day, but that's fine. I'm not 100% on that, but yeah, I had a fever. I could be thinking about Sunday the 19th instead of Monday the 20th, but on the 21st I opened the letter coming home, and thankfully I just noticed it and stuff, and I went to sleep basically immediately because of that. And I only was asleep for like half an hour, which is weird. That's not normal, and that was because of the fever. And then because of that, I was able to be awake to take a call to reschedule the appointment to the Thursday the 23rd. And then immediately after, go back to sleep, and then be kind of aware and awake for a pharmacy scheduling and drop off somewhat. And I think I do have a few videos from that day. I think at least one to about like when I scheduled a pharmacy pickup or something, maybe, or that might be from before the appointment. I don't remember, something like that. But it was that day, and I hope it was that day, and it wasn't on just my cell phone. And I told the person who made contact with me for the delivery for the pharmacy that to do temperature checks just in case because of me. So I did do my due diligence at least once with that, which I think that went well. And then I was just kind of like, there wasn't anything else I had to kind of do. And I think because of that was good. And then on the 22nd, I did a lot of stuff, I think. And yeah, and then tried to get an appointment, and there's a bunch of videos from that day to refer to my condition and stuff over time, over a few hours. And on the 23rd, I was supposed to have that long-term personal care thing, and I could not. And when I was contacted about it, that was completely rescheduled, and I'll have another new letter to receive, and then that'll be done at this same address at my condo at 406 Parkview Boulevard, Vanderbilt, Louisiana. So the same location, it's same registered thing. And on the same day I received that, or was it this? No, this was the other day. And then on the 24th, I had a 9:20 a.m. video, like virtual visit with Dr. Brandy Panunti, and I wasn't doing that well the previous night before that, but I spent most of that time just kind of organizing and doing things because I had a fever and I could, and making sure I had food ready, which was helpful for after the appointment and stuff, because I had a lot to do that day, and I was more and more concerned about potential issues concerning the 16th with the law enforcement response the prior week. I was still worried about that because there hadn't been anything in that work week and stuff, but it doesn't mean. And that past weekend was odd in that usually my mother will show up with her friend and disrupt me and cause a pretty stressful response depending on what goes on and if I'm in my room and if I can just kind of wait it out on either Saturday or Sunday. Yeah, recently it's been Sundays, so I've been able to kind of make more plans and stuff on Saturdays. But since there's no actual rhyme or reason really, it and the more that occurs, the more overall sense of kind of stress there is. But that weekend, Sunday passed, and the night on the 19th, and nothing had happened. I think, or if it did, I was asleep and I didn't get notified by any alarm or anything. On the 24th, though, I'd have my whole appointment with endocrinology and set up future follow-ups with endocrinology specialty at Ochsner. In the future months. It wasn't like an immediate thing, it seemed like, but it was I was given instructions and such, and then definitely follow up because of that in person for other chronological matters regarding like birth and physical development and stuff like that, which I always knew I was going to have to do, but it seems like that's their specialty, so I feel like I'm in good hands with that whenever that does come to pass. Assuming at this point it's going to be next year, early next year maybe or so, probably around when I have my oncology appointment in early February. I'm going to assume it's going to be around there. So that was good, and I think I have that I pulled it up yet because I pulled it up ahead of time. This is one of the things I spoke about on that date, so I just wanted to make sure to show this. Wait, this was the right one. Oh, whoops, this isn't the earliest one. I meant to pull up the one from June as well for a baseline. Just because I didn't talk about this like in any stream for my documentation, but that's important. This was just one of the full panel taken for me. So minimum maximum range kind of a thing. Whenever this was described to me by another physician, not endocrinology, not Ochsner endocrinology subspecialty, that I actually had hit for the first time kind of close to normal testosterone level, which is very strange. Usually it had been expressed to me, but I could not find records from previous endocrinology for pediatrics that I was always severely on the low or under the low by enough to almost knock me out of growth hormone treatment, which I guess if this was the same 10 years ago or so or more for 264, I'm not sure if this might not be relevant to that. Then you just assume it was under that, so that I have for a note for myself for the future. And somehow I have no idea how it was that. And I wasn't on like testosterone supplementation either, so I don't know. No one prescribed me testosterone. I'm not sure how it was that, but I guess it just was. And then this was which this has always just been naturally high for me, for like a norm or whatnot. I don't know if this one says normal on it, normal there, but it didn't say why the test was done, so I don't know if it was done under a certain context, if that meant the normal would change for this normal. So maybe I shouldn't say that this is reference to normal, because I don't actually know. I shouldn't say that. Also don't know what this necessarily means. And the only number I expressed to Ochsner was the testosterone NGDL. I did not say the second number. I am going to make a note here to do that in the future. And I'm going want to screenshot this so that I know to do that, because I'll put an arrow and stuff so that, like at my next appointment, I actually talk about that and how I didn't do the first thing. And this was the more recent. This shows that. And this was after 14, I think it was the 12th, 13th, or if I look at the calendar, I think I wrote it down just to make sure to note it down that I think it was the 14th that I got the full amount of prescriptions on pickup. I believe so, not the 11th, but I'm not 100% certain, and it didn't take very long. It was either that or the 11th. So either the 11th or the 14th, or one of the other. I started one and it didn't start other for the hormone replacement for the estradiol and the spironolactate. I don't remember which one was which. Do something with insurance. It may have been the spironolactate. I don't know. But assume that like 11th to 14th was the start, and then that, so there was roughly an exact for the 24th when I saw my general practitioner, nurse practitioner, Tran, on the 24th at 8:30 ish, and some, I don't know, like 10 to then to 10 a.m. or so, probably around there, I had labs, and so that's like at the maximum like 30 days, or minimum 30 days, like maximum 33 days, well, 33 days, just about, for or like 32 days, I guess, of medication, and that's when, and like, yeah, potential changes. And then this one was done, and then that's the level for this, and then that's the level for this. And I was also informed that by Ostener Specialty that at least for I guess my context and such, for my notation, that a target value would be 150 for that. And then this is, I don't remember for what on this. I should have written it down. I don't remember. It might have been anything under 500 or something, but I have no idea. I don't remember. And also the first number was also, it wasn't just this. It had like that other number under it, and I didn't mention the other number under it, so I don't know. But since this says below low normal, testosterone NGDL, and I think this one is testosterone NG, we'll reorganize that. NGD, and that's normal. And that is pretty close to, if it was supposed to be like 500 or so, then that would be kind of in the middle of the whole bar. That's pretty close to barely above anyway. And then, wait, where'd it go? And then it's lower again. And this was always what I would remember, is this, like the 76. I don't know in what regards that would be, but this is kind of looks like it's to the higher point, like 80% of, but I'm not gonna say that's guaranteed, of the 0 to, I'm guessing, 264, unless unless it goes into the negatives at all on this bar but doesn't show. It's just I'm gonna assume that's the case. Wait, it might go into the negatives, because if 76 is right here, that's quite a lot of distance. So maybe there is a negative value. And it probably goes above 1,000 too for the high end, because 916 is here. And then, yeah, so it might be like a negative, and like it might not be like a 0 to 1,000 or something scale, or like something like that. It might just be like there's no limitation or something, or negatives might indicate conversion of one thing to another or something like that. I always remember that was part of growth hormones, so maybe that's part of this. This isn't very detailed for me, but it definitely did its job. So I'm happy with it. Especially since at a glance I could find the number I needed, like on a time limit with that virtual visit. That helped a lot. I think that was like a big part of why my appointment got scheduled and stuff, to progress forward with Oshner. And if I hadn't been on the ball about that, things had been different. So I'm pretty happy with myself with that. And then this being this, I guess that's probably more normal-ish. I always remember that was high during growth hormone as well, naturally. So it's perfectly expected to me. It's good. It's good. Within a month, only that, or that that falls in line with my expectations from like assumptions that I had about, but not like confirmations in data, like with lab tests and stuff, because I just didn't have the lab results on hand, but I know they were done when I was in high school and things, and then before even high school and middle school and stuff, like and in elementary school. But my lack of like empiricized data was always something that keeps me from like speaking, just because that's how I am. It's my personality. That's just a lot of apprehension with that, due to me not having any apprehension everywhere else, and having such a founded level of knowledge that I've been able to testify for that, in front of federal judges, to advisors to Congress, on calls with advisors to Congress, like on different stuff. Like many patients have to deal with different specific conditions, and or different types of cancer and things like that, just to gain treatment for themselves and to secure it for the future, and make sure they don't like implement something that would end up directly harming me, just because like no one is around to say the thing that is happening, just because it's your patients, and unless it gets like real bad or something, someone knows something's going to be implemented or passed that will directly harm you, you're basically just not going to ever be contacted, because there's no actual like reason to look at any patient's data, to find a specific patient. Like, is there any patients alive or children who have this type of cancer still, or can we assume that all of this type of a treatment completely failed, so we're never going to do it again? Oh wait, no, he's still alive, we're going to come talk to him. That type of a thing. So like because I just have always been my whole life very like numbers based in regards to having so much data, and been like blessed to have that, and having that had saved my life up so many different times in different ways, for catching different things. and that just always working out somehow, which is just not just unusual, but like I kind of expect it to happen, just because like I've never known anything else, and I kind of figure when it doesn't happen, I'm just gonna be dead. So it hasn't happened yet. I don't think it's going to, but that's not normal. But that's why I kind of don't just come out and say certain things about certain like diagnoses or certain stuff, even to physicians, when asked, just because like it's like I know, but at the same time I'm not gonna say it, because of I know the consequences of presenting something, like especially with my background and stuff at all. It could be too weighted if I'm completely just like being I wouldn't say frivolent, but I probably have too much of a fever right now to think of the actual word, but something that's not really analogous to it, but would be like airheaded kind of manner of cadence in speech, kind of like to where it's like, oh well, it's hasn't had a problem yet, so isn't gonna have a problem, kind of a thing. Whenever it's been more of like has had lots and lots of problems, but problems have always just been pretty much through chance and very good fortune, always been solved, and every single time that only gets to a higher and higher chance because of stuff like references and the patient's like own education and knowledge of it, and mine's just far superior to most people, that I haven't been mistaken for a physician by other physicians, but in certain other contexts been kind of demanded to like not speak, because I just answered questions about my cancer and I knew too much, I guess. And it was type of a context that I suppose others were not allowed to eliminate the opportunity of believing that like everybody could be a physician. So like people's titles and stuff weren't introduced necessarily. And I'm sure I wasn't the only one who had that spoken to them and expressed to them. I think that was basically every single person who could have been speaking. And by the time it got to me, it was like probably like the last one. It was more ridiculous because of me being the actual patient, that all of a sudden it no longer like applied in. It didn't seem like there was any issues that would have been had, since it wasn't really about me in the first place. It just kind of was about me, but like not 100%. So that was why it wasn't like me speaking about like when I was diagnosed and stuff like that. More of just like, oh, like certain things with melanoma, with this and this, and I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, like with this and this is how you find the reference to it, and this is how and apparently that was what they needed, but like, because that's not normally what I speak about if I'm spoken to about my cancer, because it's usually the physician directly asking me, what this date, that date, things like that. Just like on Friday, like last Friday on the 20, I have to pull up the calendar again. On the 20, in the wrong month. The 20, definitely in the wrong month. 24th at 9, since I was struggling to keep time. But I still did a pretty good job. I think I did, considering the circumstances, because it was very successful, but that was probably because of the doctor, not me. You know, it takes a lot of experience to be a physician, and flat out telling the patient, even when, you know, it's obvious the circumstances, that their time is like at a limited amount because of the, you know, the appointment time and stuff, and probably doing that multiple separate ways, but like not being non-direct, being direct, because that's how physicians have to be, is direct whenever a patient's like definitely having something going on. You know, they have to be direct so they can observe like symptoms and things like that. That's like an experience thing. And this is the more senior physicians who see me are like that. It's just how it is. So it's a reassuring thing to me for I can do that at least. Because I was able to jump into the showing the documentation like I just did, because I had like wanted to like present it physically like I would have otherwise, would have liked to usually do if I see someone in person, but I couldn't because of just circumstances. Even if the surgery worked out great because I had a fever, my goal was always to have a, you know, stable environment like my condo, to fully, you know, have the capacity to show up with printed materials and other references, which I have only just started to basically set up again, because things do take me years sometimes, especially with the more like the frequency of, or the greater the threat of potential other things that could alter my health or ability to live, you know, at all, just because like, you know, just continued altercations externally. The more time I have to have stability, the better. That's what the goal is for someone on Social Security like me. We're not supposed to just jump around, you know? That's not the purpose. Everybody knows we're gonna end up dead if that happens, so it's just not supposed to. And I don't think anybody wants that to happen. However, you know, my continued documentation of things as they go, that can't change, you know? It's just too assistive to me. It's too crucial to have it, because I can't do it at all if I'm not here. It doesn't happen. It won't happen. It will be impossible. I'm barely able to like be at the capacity to where, like, on the 22nd of October, having a fever and stuff, do as much as I did that day. Like, there was a lot of videos, a lot of me live streaming myself, talking, speaking, taking like breaks from doing that, you know, coming back to that kind of, so I could, if I needed to, I could gauge just almost immediately, just on my phone, sitting in an appointment like I have before, what happened when, and the causation of events. That's life or death stuff right there for a cancer patient. Even if other people don't understand that or disagree, it just doesn't matter. One thing I say one day might be the only documentation or reference of it, and I'm the only one who probably knows that in relation to other things, that's where it would be, just by time alone, because I'm intelligent enough to do it, to handle things that way, even at my worst. Or actually, that's the only way I handle things. It's kind of like what I rely on when thinking at all, kind of. So having it there is necessary. It's just, and the more ability for other people in other automated means to have already done something in the background without me ever thinking about it, which has happened, which a lot of times physicians, their residents, their teams, knowing stuff in the circumstances around it, they can go and they look back at it or indicate to another resident in the room to step out to go on the computer systems in like a more secluded manner that they have for research and to look, and they do, and they send back indication like through the system while I'm sitting there, and they like turn the screen and they show me, and so just stepped out, and they came back with this, is this correct or something like that. And that's because of me indicating earlier in the conversation something about like a certain date and time, and here I'm on recording, and like this is but like I didn't remember, or I was holding my phone like about to look it up, but like 10 minutes go by and I'm forgetting to press the video or something like that to try to show them even though they're waiting. So that shows I'm not doing very good, right? And then so that's why someone steps out and then looks themselves. That's the difference between potential like publicizing access or non. And since I'm not a company, and because of the designation chosen, automatically set, I don't like advertising. Doesn't affect me. I'm not capable of paying for advertising or even using credits for advertising, which I've tried to do before, just because I was given like 500 credits, and I was like, okay. And they removed that from my account permanently and locked me out of that because I wasn't allowed to do that, because all of my stuff is medical. And apparently that's how it is. If it's, I guess, someone like me in my circumstances. And that's probably just to like keep security for like the best chance for potential interactions legally with advertising or non-advertising affect yourself and access in the future, since obviously I've expressed to Google many times in court appeals and stuff that's the purpose, and that's why my selection is what it is and stuff like that, and that's in line with how it works. So it's just, that's how it is. I don't get, if I don't know how anyone would find anything about me through like recommendations or anything. I don't know how that would work. Every so often I have been told by people like in a chat for live stream, like happened like last week, or I think last week on like the 22nd probably, unless it was the 23rd, where I had the longer amount of like shorter videos or something over a longer gap in time. I may have hit the bare minimum, which is a very, very long amount of time. It's like probably 5 to 7 hours. And that was probably by pure chance. I don't think I've ever done that before. To have anyone find a live stream that isn't like trying to ahead of time, like find it on Google. That's how it works. Since it's not like a video game or something like on Twitch where you have to say what it is ahead of time. It's like an account-based thing. It's not the same thing. So that's usually most live streams on Google's stuff can be like anything. It can be like it can be like CCTV footage. It can be like parliamentary proceedings or stuff like that, to where people pay Google to, like, I pay Google to have storage and stuff, and it would be something like like my phone just lit up because I said their word to have a search, but it, it's different use cases because that's what they do, and this is just the hosting side of things, and the, like, display side of things too, and streams are broadcasts in the United States, so it's a different thing, and I think some people can run their own ads and things on their streams because of how that kind of a thing can work. So maybe like TV stations or something. It's very diverse. So someone like myself, you don't pop up like for just random stuff. And someone actually popped up in like the chat and was like, I heard a different noise, and it was like I just saw this be like pop up, and like I was like, I think I responded to them late, but I think I said some sort of response. And I think that's the very first time that's ever happened. And all of that was, that was after. That definitely, I swear, that happened all after the 16th with that law enforcement response. So I don't think anything's happened within the week of the 13th to the 17th that is relating to what I said. I think it was the last week, the 20th to 24th of October 2025. That's when I think that happened. Yeah. Because I've gotten people pop up on Twitch all the time. Usually like bot spam advertisement comments, but that's because you pick a category, and when I play video games, I like to stream, especially just to show my history of like the streams, make sure I remember if I have the streams, like exported. I really enjoy that. I'm not gonna just stop doing that. And my streams have been interrupted before by my mother, and an incident type way, and then had to, but I don't think yet have had to have law enforcement respond while I've been on Twitch. The likelihood increases by a lot towards the future, but it's happened quite a few times to where I've made note of me being on Twitch and streaming, and I definitely had people actually watching because I was playing Stellar Blade in June, and I even clipped it so that it would be on my channel. And that was kind of a risk because I almost made the lowest level of Twitch professional thing earlier this year before my internet got shut off by my family due to my father, I guess, having issues with the contract, probably. He has Alzheimer's dementia. He probably screwed something up with the contract. Our contract was pretty much inflated from what it is now. So I had to start paying for it entirely on my own, even though it was included in my lease, and that I was in like February. And right up until then, I had just by a complete chance, because it's a numerical thing, and it's like luck, really, because I don't do anything enough. I'm not healthy enough, but so to get to the first goal, it's luck, and then once you're there, you can be normal like me, and then it not be an issue moving forward, and you can get ad revenue. But I still don't get any ad revenue on that. But if I did, that could be like $20 or $30 a month, even for the minimal amount of things I do. And that would be pretty life-changing, since a normal Social Security increase every year is only $15 to $30 maybe. I think it's going to be 2.8% this next year, which I'm not sure if that's correct, but I'll just say it was 2.8, and whatever the email I got was correct from Social Security. That's, of course, very much lower than inflation. I get $967, and that's it right now per month on the last business day of the month or whatever. That's $27.76. So that is what it is, I guess. That's a lot of money for me, but that to $50 or something from Twitch on top of that a month, that's an incredible amount of money for me. You're talking a very significant amount change to my credit ability to not have to constantly take out monthly like $500 to $600 in like payday advance kind of things at close to 0% interest or fees. Close, but not exactly. Like, I still think I have to pay $20 a month in a membership just to access $500 of cash advances, that I can make those cash advances $0. So that's better than everything else, but that's still, not optimal. And other services that I've had to access in the past few months due to financial constraints, and like just because I've had to do that, mainly because of having to pay for the internet since February, or since April, whenever I got the contract fully set up and stuff, because I went most of the month of February, I think, to part of April, having no internet, even though I paid for it in my lease for my rent. To pay for the lease, or the lease itself, I guess, not the rent, but the lease. I still have to now pay for that on top of it, so that's a big increase. So the increase this year for Social Security by itself doesn't cover that. It covers part of it, but not all of it. Because I pay $70, which is, I think, a promotional rate for Charter Spectrum. I'm hoping to regain that promotional rate for the future, but if I don't, then I will have lower than the least at signing of the contract minimum amount of internet speed, which was the 1 gigabyte, or like close to intended to be that speed, which was very good, which was mostly close to that. I've had them come out a few times, and they've fixed a lot of things. They've done great. I've had a very good service experience with Charter Spectrum so far. A few times I had about 3 months of complete disconnections because physical lines were severed or dug up and severed at like points that weren't like their connection thing. They had to like walk around and find it, and they found it, and that's what happened. And I'm not used to that happening because Bodin has everything buried pretty deep, but because that's where I've lived, previously. But just because I was fortunate with that previously, and because of the placement of like utilities maybe in the middle of a street, just because of like proximity to the hospital systems, doesn't necessarily make frequent disconnections of service due to lines just being torn or completely severed by humans. It doesn't mean that's malicious. It just means it just happens. It's whatever. And most people would be healthy enough to immediately like address that problem. It doesn't mean I was in the like communication like level with my family to do so, to coordinate it, because I wasn't also the account holder, like sole account holder either. We had a big issue with that, because every time something would happen, I would need to have like internet to basically access and re-authenticate the account systems as its administrator, because I had the administrative access, and my mother had taken away administrative access multiple times in the past, probably just her own behavioral things. And even if that's not what was in the interest of all of us or had been agreed on or anything, it just that's the kind of thing that would happen sometimes. Sometimes they may like sent her a bunch of emails or called her or something and bothered her at work, and it may not have even been something she thought of like, oh, this is going to change everything, so my son no longer has access anymore. He needs to have access by not just the lease, but by just so that I'm no longer contacted while I'm at work or something like that. And that's definitely something that I think happened at least once. The other times it could have just been straight up like behavioral. I'm not sure. Earlier this year, I don't know exactly, but I very much suspect it was something with altogether that, and it just makes it an impossible circumstance because I'm not the one handling just the contract, and you can't just expect anyone to try to, like, if someone's upselling a contract or something and they're contacting someone with Alzheimer's, dementia, it's just like, that's not, I just expect at this point that that's probably whatever. But because of myself and my background and my education in software engineering, and having been that in LSU and stuff like that, I approach it from that, whenever I'm talking to like the internet service providers and stuff, and I have a much different experience than my parents ever did. They usually would delegate that task to me. It definitely, by the time I had been like slotted in for and selected for that major through LSU, just because it really did drastically change the interactions a lot, based on who you'd interact with. And like, if you're just going to be given advertisement to sales or like, we'll be out there today kind of a thing. They still could be out there today, but like, if you don't, if you're going to be the type of person who's in the conversation willing to allow for choosing all alternative options or adding other things too, then that's kind of on you type of a thing, which isn't a bad thing because it helps people to find the thing they're supposed to find. But I usually put too much stuff in up front to them, which is very helpful to troubleshoot. That might not be a network engineer or anything, but like they come at it like already eliminating most things, and we're able to, two of the times the lines were severed, even when I forgot to say that the lines had been severed previously and was just standing there aimlessly, like not talking for hours. They were able to like just on their own end kind of not consider that, not consider other factors, just because, even though I didn't have a detailed knowledge of the building's systems, like I did at previous address, because of me growing up there and watching, things get put in place and taken out and reused, and always being the one that would be the most affected by ping, or by potential like disruptions for school and everything, failing classes and stuff like happened like once, that had to get it changed from an F to like an A because of other circumstances, but had to be addressed and proven by me, because that's just how that's what's expected of the student, and that's what has to be done. So I plan to just always have that be within my capacity. So me being the account holder is better. So if like Social Security's increase this year was higher, and I could close to cover the internet entirely, then I'd be back to where I was at financial planning for this calendar year of 2025, instead of not where it was. Like I had things planned out for debt and interest payments and things like that, like ahead of time when I take out a loan or do something else or plan a purchase with like breakable purchasing, and I don't have any leeway or room to do anything because usually it's food, toilet paper, stuff like that. Taking the opportunities with those expenses, which I never had before I was living on my own, because they were supposed to be included in my my previous like room and board rent, but not necessarily like a leased property. But now it's like a leased property. I also get SNAP, which took a little while to set up, but I get that. I'm also getting in the future, and will get things from the LDH for the Louisiana Department of Health, because I live alone on my own, and I'm on Social Security and stuff, and those are the criteria. It just takes years to get that all set up, but once it's set up, it's permanent, and it's a huge financial relief that I can't get otherwise. I live with someone else, I can't get it. I live with someone else who could bring in other persons, can't get it. If I live with someone else who might have priors or something, can't get my medication. If I live with someone else like that, or potential like significant others with that, I think I can't get my medication basically delivered, which is something I can't financially handle. It's not something you're supposed to be. People like me are just, the system set up to we're supposed to live alone because of medical reasons, and all of these other systems like reinforce that. Other elderly people are the same exact way. Like if they're single and they're elderly and they're not married, then they would be in the same circumstance I am. Even if they had children who are no longer dependent, who live like in a different state or something, who could potentially fly in to help them or something, they'd still be in the same circumstance and be treated the same. I'm talking like very, very elderly, like 90 years and plus, but like they don't need assistance with mobility really. Maybe. I probably would need more assistance sometimes than them, because that's usually what happens. Like if I don't have my epilepsy medicine and something else affected me that I don't know of, or like things in the past, or didn't have the stimulant for the narcolepsy, which also is for the epilepsy as well, because it's the same part of the brain. Without that, I can't have a seizure threshold. So if I don't know another medication causes you to lower your seizure threshold, then all of a sudden I have induced seizures and I can't have like whatever the Kensia thing was, like with movement or something, which because of my amount of brain damage it presented maybe a bit differently, because normal people who present a certain condition are still going to not have the damage to the region of the brain that I do. So it might just end up going from like, what would be expected and managed to it looks like he's having a stroke. And it's having all of the other things that come with it, but still not a stroke patient, maybe. And now he's in the stroke clinic type of a thing. And now that that's all happened, I don't think that's going to happen again, because I'll know what to watch for and know what to ask when speaking to physicians. I won't just accept certain new treatments. Like I did in the past, possibly just due to fear and it being a child, more or less, being like between a child and like young adult, and not having any other options to live alone, and not being on Social Security, and having had my medication taken away, and having had my parents denying that my narcolepsy was present, even though I was currently having a Social Security case and stuff. It just was like, my physicians get told something that's completely false, so they can check, because they can look at my medical records and test results and stuff like that. There's just a lot less faith to prescribe or move forward with treatments that they know have caused some sort of like severe amount of like social circumstance to happen, because of like parental like fixation on that, because the parents might want something to just work. They want their kid to be just perfectly healthy, and they're facing that a transition period in their life, and I always knew there was a risk of that, but I hadn't seen that coming, because I was doing so well at the end of high school on the same medication I'm on now. And there wasn't an insurance reason. It was just like it was just a choice reason, and I didn't have the financial ability to use insurance to do the thing, just because I wasn't on Medicaid yet, fully on just Medicaid yet, as my primary. I had secondary insurance with my father once I was on just Medicaid until recently, but that never was used because it wasn't really supposed to. Even though I had them for years and years, and my insurance was separate than my parents because it was its own separate plan, it was still paid for by my father, so like in his firm and things. And that basically meant if my mother, like, she didn't, like, when I was in high school at the very end, didn't want me on any medication at all, but didn't tell me, and didn't tell all my doctors, and told them different things, and he made different decisions on different dates too, so that may have just been why. Quickly piecing together things, because I was at my best, became less and less within my ability to do as time went on. And one of the things I wish I had done the most was record things and just have it there, and record myself especially, so that I could show the doctor, because I didn't know when I asked, okay, well, on this date, at what point in the conversation do you remember like this, and like what was happening with this, or are you sure like you didn't antagonize anything like here or here, just in case, because what you're saying is very, very severe, like level of criminality and everything else, or it could just be like potential that you didn't know the whole time someone had like a severe potentially hereditable type of condition that would normally be treated by certain medications or something, and because you don't know those circumstances, and you said that ahead of time and have attested to that up front, because that was always kind of a goal of mine, to always meet that and have that level of respect, so that that could be shown to me as well, even if it wasn't. It sometimes was, and that was just something I would always say that it was just something I did, and I just decided to do that on my own. I wasn't like taught to do that. When the doctors didn't tell me to do that, I just knew that, like, cause and effect, I should do that. I want to do that one day. I'm going to make sure I continue to do that, so that that one day of me becoming, whatever that would qualify as an adult, to have full control of those things, which I knew wasn't going to happen when I was 18, because I was going to be in high school when I was 18, like I was, and wasn't going to have the financial ability, if I wanted the best life possible, to 100% have complete decisions, because that meant I would have no support from my parents for school. I wouldn't be going to school anymore somehow, and that was the last thing I wanted. So when I decided to do that, I decided that there was risk to that, but I knew that for me to survive long term, that was what happened, and that was what I decided when I was, determining cancer treatment in 2008, when those types of things were asked of me, and documented and things like that. But I understood that based off of just what had happened and had been happening, and what I was taught about potential things that could happen to me, and I needed to report on ahead of time, so that I wouldn't basically just die and not come to receive chemotherapy or surgical follow-up or whatever, because of like behavior. And it was like behavioral indications, because it was like things that could just drop off a cliff with like relatives, that could cause the very, very worst, like famous examples to happen, would happen, because it was always those circumstances. I was that type of a childhood cancer patient. That was always me, and so just by default, you are spoken to and educated on, like, this to this to this, like, and how it will affect you tomorrow, and how, like, if you want to live, you have to do this, this, and this. But what I just said about, like, long term, I was already acting as though I was going to make it to then, because I was just going to do it, and do what was necessary, which was very unusual for a child of that age because of brain development level. But I was already diagnosed as a savant, so that's why. And they expressed that a bunch of times. They thought that was one of the reasons that I would have a better chance than most, was just because I was further along in brain development, so that would help with damage to my brain, but also having like no development in other places as well, because I had stopped growing and other things, would put me in a decent circumstance for potentially still having new connections, like nervous system wise, and things in the future, like forming, or if you're not going from a formed to a reduction, like MS or something, it would be potentially the opposite, because of where I was, and that was very unique. That wasn't normal. It's not like completely unheard of, but it was just a luck thing, and also because of girls being a lot more developed in their brain at that point, I had been close to that, but like it tested wise, even like the year before, but not, you know, meeting that. They were still ahead of me for sure, but not like where it really counted in some things. I was still able to do stuff, you know. But then I started the intranet and stuff, and immediately had so much reduction in ability to do things, speak, but being able to have expressed that and still my actions meet that was very important for like willingness for, you know, resources to be continuously always allocated to me, and maybe interventions to make sure that even if, you know, parents wouldn't want to any longer bring me somewhere, now they have to bring me somewhere basically to get certain things that just because the kid hasn't given up, so, you know, he's gonna make it to wherever it is. It doesn't matter what happens at the end there. He just will. And I had already known, since the biggest concern was me attending school ever again, and I knew not attending school meant I would die. And even if I said that and people were like, that's not what's going to happen to you, I was like, that's what's going to happen to me. And I just knew it was, just because of my family. I just assumed that was what was going to happen, just because of what I had already seen that up to then. And people had just been constantly telling me that I didn't get to go back to school. And I had lived next to someone who had, I don't know if it was childhood cancer or if they were considered pediatric, which was much older than me. They'd been my neighbor when I'd been even younger. And I had grown up with a lot of knowledge firsthand of their like social circumstances and stuff like that, just because being a passive onlooker, even if I was healthy, you know, then for a born very premature child, I remember it's very important and like formative things. It's only reinforced by my own cancer, and I knew I had to go to school, and that was always something I always liked, and had a good experience with. I didn't really have hobbies at that point because I just didn't. I was too young. I didn't really do any sports because I wasn't really allowed to because of endocrinology reasons, basically, at that point. I hadn't grown, so I couldn't do anything new. Even if I had tried stuff, and if I had been very successful and competitive in swimming, things like that, I was competing in this solely girls' league by the end of it. Like the older middle school to high, like probably junior high, maybe not junior high, I'm not sure. It may have been like a non-grade level thing stuff, and I was in like the end of preschool, so and that happens sometimes. But by the time I kind of stopped growing completely, and I mean, that is my history. Trying to re-enter and do stuff was not possible, and that carried forwards. It was just, the excuse was just my cancer, and it wasn't necessarily anything else. But I knew that it also was other things. I just didn't care because it was like secondary. I was like, okay, I don't want to do sports if that's the attitude behind it, and I wasn't the only one. It was just like we're doing this because we kind of there, but why do it? It's hot outside and stuff, and we're too young for anything to do championships or like compete. So why? That was, you know, that's a perfectly acceptable thing to do. And so I really wanted to get to high school too, because I knew that was my shot at getting like full participation, because I was just lucky enough to have a school as a target that was a college, and had a different circumstance behind it, and I was right. And that's, you know, them, because this is a shirt I got this month because of it. I get alumni newsletters and stuff, and I purchase the shirts on credit because I hadn't made a donation in like a couple years, I think, and I usually would do that. And I'm glad I got to do it directly to one of the like club organizations that has to raise its own money instead of just having it on its own, which I think was the student council, I'm pretty sure. And they sold a shirt. They sold the president of our student council when I was my last year there. He sold shirts, and that was unusual, but our grade started a lot of different financial stuff, kind of, due to just technology, because of us being the oldest in Gen Z. And we had like specific colored and created student-wise shirts and for uniforms, and then those were to fund like I think future activities at that point, and that was really cool. That's my profile picture on LinkedIn. I know this has kind of gone slightly past medical extents, but you know, it's just for completeness, I guess. Because I don't know if I was going to make a secondary video or live stream, because I started talking about like the cancer and the chronology, and I didn't actually plan to do that initially, but that's important within the chronology of like losing access to medical care, and that loss of access being an entirely familial causation, which started at the end of that part of me being in high school, and kind of alleviated enough for LSU, but at the same time did not. And then eventually just became impossible due to the usage of false confinement by my mother. That just stopped everything. That there wasn't any going back from there. I didn't realize that things were that bad at that point. I was always the one who was constantly, no matter if it would seem to be diluted or not, positive in outlook on finding a way forward, you know? Because I had always done it. Like I said before with the cancer. That I just proved before with the cancer. So even if I'm not in my own circumstances here in the future and I'm almost near death, I'll be able to look at this and show that. Even if I can't speak properly, I can show that. That's why I just said that, all of that. There's a reason for why I do things. I found issues back then, and I was on YouTube before YouTube was officially like acquired by Google, even though they had the similar staff employees, and I think C-level had a real YouTube account, no email. Special. And I took time when I was on treatment and right after treatment to make videos of me playing video games, mainly because of documentation stuff and just the video games in general. Limited amounts, but they're there. Some of them got viewed a lot for back then. And then I had to change their visibility settings permanently due to stuff that isn't relevant anymore. Was back then, but technology is what it is nowadays. It would not be. But I don't have any of that on my current stuff. You know, this is just medical. But I always wished I had done the medical side of things. Other people did. I was even shown examples of other cancer patients. They were just all adults. Some patients with like Lou Gehrig's disease, I think, did, and they like showed progression pathways for that. But then they had immediate issues with their like will and intentions of things being kept available and perpetual for visibility, just immediately being attacked, and not being very famous for that being attacked because their widows went to Congress and had resources to do so, which most people just wouldn't do and would fold to survive said attack. You can't do that to a child like me. You'd be that would be impossible. Just that's not going to happen. But to someone of that age range, yeah, you could. They weren't even like at retirement age either, so they wouldn't be old, So that's why it was done. I remember following that enough because of that put a lot of fear in the possibility of being secure. So a lot of stuff like that kept me from doing what I knew I could kind of do already, even when I was in high school, and finding other avenues to kind of do those types of things, like taking official photographs with famous people while wearing like specific clothing to represent like my treatment, and being the only one who could do that, actually stand and have cognitive function, who was there as and one of the only living patients privileged enough to be capable of doing that, and getting to walk around and be around so many people and not die from just infections, thankfully. And I might not be able to do that today, but I was able to do that then in like, I don't know, freshman year of high school or whatever. And because of that and financial aspects of that, because of being able to like award money as the person giving like awarding it, like even kind of like behind the back handshake, like handing off the funds like through like different systems like planned or whatnot. And I'm sure that's what it was, since it's all the United States. Being able to provide an opportunity like that to a patient like myself is a way to also establish confidence to parents and their children moving forward in being able to even like photograph their kids in the last days their kids might be alive. And that's a very important thing. And my photographs and stuff still are up to this day. And having threats against one part is threats against both of it. And because that's how I have had set things up, because I have a much deeper education into the SCOTUS doctrine behind why they have done certain things with photography, and how I might fall into that because of medical photography being the same thing as lectured. I don't think they were called sketches, but they were like a specific thing that would be done when someone would, in front of usually Congress, be examined for certain conditions in the 1800s, which was super famous for the United States. So it goes way back then, because if it's medical, that's what it is. And it was I don't remember what it was, but it had something to do with how they made the thing and could do it as it happened really, really, really fast. And whatever that is, you can just kind of go back and find it. There's lots of technology nowadays that allows you to look at like linked stuff with them that didn't even exist 10 years ago whenever I first found the things by just aimlessly clicking, just because I'm a lot better at that than most people because of the software engineering. I was just looking in the right place in the first place, and most people just never would, because they would be trying to find a website or an article or something like that, and I would somehow always just go directly to like a high-level academic or back-end research database just by how I would type something into a search bar. So it's always a concern that basically threatening one part will eliminate all of my records. And I have had a lot of records destroyed multiple separate times, almost gotten killed, even in the last 5-6 years. A few times, actually, mainly due to neurological constraints and difficulties with establishing that. And there being no reason to do those things, but it just being a lobbied, established thing for people to have such an attitude and to target patients that kind of just by nature are usually kind of separate. Usually can't, oncology is separate because everybody knows everything is documented. Things are just different. Like, everything goes through. So, tests and stuff, there's no reason to reinforce why you're doing the test. It's, it's just there. It's more beneficial to do the thing than not to do the thing, than to try to stress the patient out, which they know could get the patient killed. So which is 100% what can happen. Like, one police response on the 16th, one person in the background quietly jotting down the patient's name, date of birth, and stuff like that, because they believe they're a prosecutor and that they were there with malintent anyway. Maybe they can't find a job in the legal field, but they can find a job in medicine because they can just do paperwork or something, and they find their case that they can do, and then they can then bring that up, and then they can initiate some sort of response as though something's criminal. That's something that people have to watch out for, because that's a possibility. That's like a high-end kind of thing that most people won't be affected by, because their circumstances are not so severe in terms of like a change to their circumstance means they die, like me. That's why those types of things just basically don't happen. You have to kind of be like entirely outside of the norm from like physiology and be in a different system, profession entirely, to just think that just because you can do something like that, that's a good idea, or that's like what your job is. Those types of people don't care. But they don't necessarily, I guess, do something illicit when they do that. They just, and it's probably not going to change, I think, but it could. It's definitely been a circumstance before. I've just gotten lucky. But I was lucky, and I was also not living on my own, also handling the things that I benefit me from living on my own. But my previous circumstances were much worse in terms of, eliminating healthcare concerns, which is the biggest part of not being able to receive certain care for neurology, was not being by myself, not being secluded. And that, I can't go back to that because of other circumstances worsening with my family. 100%. There's no change in that. This isn't a temporary deal for me. This is a permanent thing. And everybody knows that. It's just how it has to happen. I have too many medical things that rely on it, and now finding new services that have to be provided to me in some part because of it, which would be eliminated if I entirely, even with my Social Security status and stuff like that, if someone else was here, which is why I am, why everything is questioned based off of like my parents and things like that, to make sure that they don't live here, and they check multiple times and stuff like that, because even for a cancer patient like me, to where people might kind of like help out and kind of be fine, just letting certain things slide. Like, even when I was a child, it was the same sentiment. They did the same thing, but it was with my sister. It was like to make sure that they know the sibling is there, so that the sibling isn't just temporarily living somewhere else during the child's initial infusions or something, like for a year, and then so where my sister would have been established in a different school system, possibly, or maybe the same, but a significant part of the different like parishes like distanced, where they wouldn't be going to the same school, or could be in a different state's school, like a private academy or something like that. Could even be sponsored by like some sort of a charity or something that has to do with children with cancer. Those types of things that could be possible solutions to help the child with cancer have to be like monitored and looked at, just because at a governmental level, you have to be sure that the child's circumstances isn't going to change in the second that one part of their treatment does, just because like medically they could be right back to needing those circumstances be permanently changed. There are things that's was a big part of things back in middle school for me. It was, as it happened really fast. I was, given Make-A-Wish stuff. I got a phone and things like that, and more utilitarian kind of needs and wants for children were constantly being expressed. Not just me with my phone, which is like very unusual. I was one of the first to demand a phone and not get anything else, because I didn't want anything else, and it was expensive back then. This was like the iPod Touch was out. I had one of those already. I didn't want an iPhone because I was asked, but I got like an LG flip push out phone because I wanted a keyboard. I had a full size keyboard, and that thing was like $1,100-$1,200 back then. It was like a professional kind of thing. And then I had like a year's worth of talk, text, and data or something, probably unlimited. So it was a lot of money. I think it was like $6,000 to $14,000 or something like that, if I recall. And I don't know how much of the award I used, but I'm pretty sure they just took everything else and just added it to the subscription like plan thing, and it just went way into the future, and that's not something normal. I don't think you can do that anymore nowadays based off of how those types of things work. But back then that was still like a thing you could do for non-company plans. So because I think Sprint's not in business anymore, or they got acquired or something, but that's how it was. And this was all before the like Obama phone type policies, and I was even interviewed and stuff about that because I was so well known because of getting a phone and having a multiple determination processes through Make-A-Wish, because they wanted to make sure that I wasn't just saying that out of nowhere. They could meet with me once, and then they had to like wait until after I was kind of cessated the interferon. And then we're making sure that I wasn't like considered cured, which of course I wasn't, so that they could try to present other options that they had put together. They're very thorough, but other kids I had heard of from even their parents and stuff as years went on that were asking for more like utility type things or other stuff, even for siblings and stuff like that, for larger families. And some kids were with like maybe just individual tumors or things, especially if they're older and teenagers, with like the potential to like go to junior college or something like that, were requesting like properties to be paid for or sponsored to live in or manage or stuff like that within like a context of a degree, major, profession, or stuff. If they weren't like a terminal like me, but were at a like lower staging of their own type of a thing and would have a much different outlook for treatment, so they wouldn't be having all of these permanence and damage for other things, just to be treated at all and live like me or other patients like myself. Even if I have a very good outcome, like I currently am speaking, than every other patient of like my ilk, but I had a very good outlook going into it, which no one else had, because that's just impossible at that age. And all these other kids, they were in a totally different circumstance. They were pediatrics and stuff, but they were still being given the same resources, and a lot of it was through like Make-A-Wish and other things like that, St. Jude's, stuff like that. And that's from what I've heard, that's all worked out great. But that's all built on the fact of the need to like separate things to give the patient the most ability to make decisions, because everything else falls apart when they can't. And even simple stuff, like being able to apparently freely record, like which would mean freely speak to my physicians at a virtual visit while I have a fever and am remote, or because my insurance no longer wants me to be in person because there is too much of a disease concern. And that may not have been the case previously, because I may have been healthier in other circumstances, and I'm not now. But now we have technology, and if someone else is here, I might not be able to do that at all. That might not be the case, though. I'm not sure. But if there is any issues with law enforcement's concerns foremost about that, that's, you know, that's irrelevant to me because of the pressing healthcare concern of access, and that's federal. And I don't want to, you know, go to court for something. I'm not capable of doing that. I won't live long enough. But that doesn't mean I'm gonna just like fold, because then I'd die. And I'm usually clearly right. And I don't like someone manipulating them, acting as though I am a normal individual who would have normal due process applied to them, because I won't, because I didn't before. And that was what could have sent multiple officers to prison, death sentences, if I hadn't have made it out on the other side and advocated for them to have no consequences to them, which I still don't know if that happened, but I tried, you know. But I like requested to do that, you know. And I'll do that in the future too, because that's important to me. But, and look, someone came over again. So I'm going to stop at this point just in case, because I want to preserve the medical context and history that I've been speaking about. And then I'll just start. Okay, well it is 11:17, so I'm gonna take my temperature again. Just to go back to that. Okay, so the acid emitted at 1300 milligrams is definitely worn off. It's 37.4 degrees Celsius. The point 0.2 that you have to add to it. That's either wait, it was 37.4. Okay, so that's 99.32 to 99.68. It's a 37. It's the second 37.4. That's not good. Okay, so even doing the back of the head, it's 36.3. That's usually very off. Okay, I did 3. Wait, delete this one because that's important. The text document is on. I think I'm streaming on a different stream. I hope it wasn't connected with the previous stream because it wasn't. It is connected. That wasn't intended. I don't know how to separate that. It's just gonna have to stay up, hopefully, and not have any issues with it because that was a lot of medical stuff that I don't want to just have the stream go away at all. I think I'm gonna have to take like a few minutes between the streams, and that's, I don't think, gonna happen right this second. That's just how it is. So that's also why I haven't uploaded recording usually, to also meet the standards that they have for AI, to ensure that it shows that, you know, that there's no editing between the things, or if there is, what it is, based off of, like, if something reports one of the videos, like which can't report the live stream, can't report the other part, then stuff gets blurred out or something like that automatically, or the sound goes away, it'll compare. It's like a thing for internal stuff, for software, and it's easy to do. It's how it's all set up. It does it for you. I mean, not the uploading part, but like, if you do that, then like separately, and it's the same thing, then it's, you know, you compare and contrast, because there are separate laws in like AI and like manipulation and stuff, but obviously that's not what I'm doing, so it's, you know, you can tell on a software level. So I think that recordings were separated. Unless they weren't either, then I'm really screwed, because I haven't tried to do that within such a short amount of time between two things before. I've never done that before, so I don't know. I usually wait like over a minute or two because I fall asleep. So I'll put this here maybe, and hope that I can have that up separately, and then let's just see what happens. I really don't want the two live streams to be connected. They're supposed to be two separate things, but it doesn't let, I guess it doesn't let me do that even when I press stop. I might be able to send a support ticket or something and then ask for it to be separate later. I'll make that as a note for myself. I don't know though.
Hey, Jeffrey?
Yeah, Mom, I'm in the middle of something.
I sent you photos.
You did? I will check them after I am done with this.
It has to do with cleaning so you don't have bugs.
Okay, yeah, you got about the cockroaches. Yeah, okay.
Yes, you have a responsibility. You need to take care of cleaning and do a better job.
Okay, I tried to do a pretty good job, but I think I've been lacking lately because I've had a fever. So I'll definitely look, and I will improve.
I showed you, even when you weren't sick, you chose not to take my advice.
I mean, I tried to do...
Look at videos on how to clean, use the proper cleaning product, you won't have bugs.
Okay.
You gotta take your trash out.
I've been doing that even more regularly lately, so I've been definitely improving on that.
Clean the kitchen daily.
I got better with that too. I got some different cleaning products for that, and that's been more cost effective, and I looked into that, and that's what I found for that, and that worked a lot better. And I've noticed a definite difference in like the stickiness of the countertops and stuff from when I was just trying to use like dish soap and stuff.
Dish soap for counters is perfect, but you don't use that much soap.
Well, yeah, but I was using the super diluted orange type that I got, and that's been working great. Well, that's it receiving your text messages. It's just taking a while. That's why it keeps doing that loud beeping. It's going to keep doing that until it's got everything sent to it, so it's just nothing you can do about it.
I would like to show you on the stove what to do.
I will check the text messages. That's a much better way to do it, is to take the photos just like you did. I really appreciate that.
But I've done this before.
Yeah, I know, but I have looked at it, and I also have been too stressed out, and I have ignored them, and I will this time not ignore them, and I will look definitely, because I'm gonna do that.
The other thing you shouldn't ignore is the other items on the lease.
Okay.
Cleaning is part of it. The door lock is the other part.
I've been doing good with cleaning both toilets now. I didn't entirely focus on the other toilet for a while.
Part of the lease. And the other item that is the most important,
like I just cleaned one of them yesterday.
All the videos, Jeff.
I mean, that's not on the lease to my knowledge.
No, that is what the police have told you, what I'm telling you. It is not legal. You need to take them down. It's dangerous.
I mean, then we should just communicate through writing.
I did communicate in writing many times, and so did the police. They told you.
They didn't talk to me in writing or anything remotely. I don't
even have a video of her telling you. on YouTube.
I don't, because I
Yes,
didn't.
you do.
I didn't speak with them on video, so I don't. I mean, they have body cam video, but I didn't request it.
I'm talking about your mother. You have a video of your mother telling you to remove the videos on YouTube.
I mean, don't talk to me whenever I, doing something else.
Writing, and now I'm telling you verbally. You seem like you're really awake.
Because I was in the middle of something, and you're interrupting at something, and I'm telling you to stop talking to me verbally so that we don't have to have this issue in the future.
I'm taking the steps necessary, Jeff. I want them down. You need to take this seriously. My name, my face.
And you need to not interrupt me while I'm live streaming on Twitch and stuff. And like I've told you that while I was doing it, and you continue to talk with me. And if you don't like that, I told you to stop with the thing that I'm doing while I'm, you can't interrupt that type of a thing and then expect it to just go away. That is not how that process
Jeffrey,
works.
You've had years that you've been told to take down the videos. Years. You are choosing not to do it. You had a really weird video where you're rambling about it. You don't think that there's a reason to do it. There is. Do you understand the reason, Jeffrey? Jeffrey.
Documenting myself especially when I have a fever and like how I'm doing and things like that is important.
You haven't had a fever for the last 3 years, dude.
I have it today. I have a fever today. The medicine is wearing off. I still have a fever.
Do it now.
Jeffrey, what was your excuse a week ago when you didn't have a fever?
I still had a fever last week. I had a fever at the doctor's office too.
Jeffrey, 2 years ago, what was your excuse?
But you said last week.
Jeffrey, I've been telling you this for years to take that stuff down. You've chosen not to listen. You kept giving us an excuse that it had your medical record information and your doctors were looking.
It does. If you're going to interrupt me while I have like talking to my doctors or doing medical record information stuff, then it still does. And you just not need to stop doing that so that you don't have any inclusion.
And you said yesterday on a video or written.
And I didn't post anything about you guys being here yesterday.
No.
Like you asked.
I'm calling the police because you're not, first of all, following things in the lease.
You asked me not to do anything yesterday, and I didn't. I wasn't in the middle of something yesterday, and I didn't do anything.
You're talking and you're talking.
Just like you asked.
You're making no sense. Just repeat after me. The videos must come down.
No. I'm not going to just take down all my medical records videos. I don't care. I'm not doing that.
Do not have your
well, don't show up while I'm doing something.
The ones that I'm in, Jeffrey, you're talking, stop talking. Jeffrey, the ones I'm in are not the same as your doctor ones. It's me. It's my information. All your doctor information is there. It's in other text messages and videos, not those. So I'm asking you, I'm telling you, take down the ones that have to do with me and your father and his medical information. Take it down.
Well, just like yesterday, could you give me more documentation on what exactly you're upset with in the specific videos? Because that's helpful.
Shut up and listen. Last night you posted on Facebook the printout of your bullshit writing that you put on YouTube that is a violation of the law.
I took a photograph of the printout you guys left me. You left me a printout on the table, so I took a photo of that. I took a photo of what you left me in only the first page.
What you posted last night, it was your information, your writing, but it includes my name and my address.
Did you write your name and address on the paper you left me? Because I didn't read the full fucking paper.
Jeffrey,
you did, you
Jeffrey,
idiot.
Read the paper, Jeffrey.
Why did
That's
you?
your writing, you stupid.
Why did you leave a very threatening piece of paper that I wanted documented because I was upset about you doing that at all? And you wrote your name and address on it? I don't recall that being on that paper.
Jeffrey, you did.
I didn't write anything on that paper.
It's on the first
That
page.
first page of that paper had your writing. I didn't touch it.
You missed a printout of your writing, you idiot.
It's your.
You put that on YouTube.
Yes, Facebook or whatever.
No, that's on YouTube.
I didn't highlight stuff.
That was the bullshit one where we had to call the cops on because you threatened to kill the police.
Jeffrey, it's your writing, your video. We just copied it.
and highlighted and wrote a bunch of stuff all over it, and then typed up other stuff.
My name and all of my information and your dad's on videos. I'm proving it. That was proof.
And you put it up again.
And you
illegally.
You took a picture of it and talked about it yesterday. Do you remember 15 or 16 or 17 hours ago?
I didn't put a video up of yesterday's events.
What?
I didn't video and put up anything about yesterday. Which didn't include a video.
From your video that
I took a photograph of the piece of paper you left me.
Jeffrey, go look at Facebook. It says
There's no
15
video.
hours ago you posted something. Look at it.
I took photographs of what I saw whenever I walked downstairs, and that was it.
Yeah.
Bullshit.
But why did you take photographs of that paperwork without reading it?
Because the paperwork upsets me. It upsets me. You left it there to bother me usually, and that's what I just, it upsets me. So I posted that. Something I take issue with like how you're communicating with that. It all like the writing and the different work, like the.
Out there. Jeffrey, it's your writing.
It wasn't normal.
Jeffrey, where is it? Where
Took
did you put it?
a photograph, and I posted it with all of the other photographs and a bunch of photographs.
It's illegal.
To post photographs of what.
I know this, Jeff. I'm pointing out to you that you wrote it. You put it out there in social media. I'm pointing that out.
What you wrote is illegal. You're publishing it is illegal. You published it on YouTube.
I didn't write what was on. You guys wrote what was on the paper and put that there.
The law.
You brought the paper in person yourselves.
You understand? Are you following?
Like you have with other letters you've written me. You brought it in person and
Jeffrey,
you leave it on the kitchen
letter
table.
that we left you yesterday? Where's the printout?
I took a photo of it. You're the ones yelling at me about that.
It's just the first page. You took a photo of the first page. It's more than one page.
And you're yelling at me about that having somehow
Where is it?
been
I want
your
you to
information.
get it out and review it. You wrote that. It says the date.
You're the ones who
put it
wrote
on
all
YouTube,
over it.
And you put it on Facebook.
If you wrote your own
yesterday.
address on that, I don't think you did. That doesn't make any
You
sense.
did. Jeffrey, wow.
What?
You're crazy.
I didn't put any handwriting on it. I didn't put highlights.
I don't care if you didn't highlight
The
it.
writing is yours. The writing, the print.
The
print.
type.
The printout is what you put on YouTube. It's a bunch of lies and personal information. It's illegal to put anywhere online. Should not have been put on YouTube on April
I wonder
12th
if it even
this year.
contains their name.
It should not have been put on Facebook last night.
Do you understand what we're saying? You started it with a writing and a video. We're only showing you what you did as proof that I want that taken down. That's only one of many. It's just an example. Do you understand?
You are required by law to take it down. You will be arrested, and nobody gives a
Go
shit.
to the video and then report the video so that I can go through the court process with Google, like I have before. If Google agrees with you and you just have to report the video to them on YouTube itself, which this video
Take it down.
apparently is,
You have control of it.
Then-
I'll break this fucking door down and smash your computer if I have to.
Jeffrey, I don't
This
have
seems
access to your
incomplete.
YouTube
If you are
or
recording a video,
Facebook account.
go to the video
Do
on
you think I
YouTube,
do?
click the three dots or more,
Jeffrey,
and select
do you think
report.
I do?
Follow the on-screen steps to complete
it,
the
it thought you were asking a question, so it said to go to the video, you click on the three dots, and then you click report, and then
Take
go
it
through the
down. You
process,
have control.
and then
Jeffrey,
I'll be
they
able
don't
to
do that.
review it.
They don't do
Take
it.
it
They
down.
have.
You
They've
control.
removed
You're
a
shut
bunch
the
of
fuck
different
up and
videos.
listen.
It's not
Shut
that.
the fuck
That's
up
how the
and
process works.
listen.
They go to
We know
court.
about this much better than you do. We've
You
been
just
around this block,
click the
and
three
that's why the
dots,
police are
click
involved.
report.
Jeffrey, all you have to do is take it down. You will be left alone if you take it down. There are many. That's not the only one. I want to make
There
sure
are hundreds
that you
of them.
understand that. The one that you videotaped of me in your bedroom? Do you remember putting that online?
Yeah, and I appealed that, and they said it was fine.
No.
They went to
it's
court
not.
over it.
You don't have my permission. That's me.
You were told not to go in there because of previous
No,
times
that's not the
moving and
reason why
taking
you
my
put it on
prescription
there.
medication.
You need to take everything
And you
down.
agreed to that
You know
whenever we were with
what?
Ava and
I-
signed the
I-
Social Security
I told
agreement.
You verbally, I put it in writing. It's been going on for years. I'm definitely taking the next step because this is illegal. You've been warned. You're just being obstinate. It makes no sense.
Just go to the video and report it. It
Take
will
all
be
the
reviewed.
fucking videos down
And it will be
of
reviewed
me.
under the current legal structure so that even if I'm wrong about
Shut
something,
the fuck up.
they'll
you don't
handle
know what
it.
you're talking about. Shut the fuck up. Grow up. I said it again. Grow the fuck up, you little baby. You're a little piece of shit. Stop being that way. Be a human.
Jeffrey, private information is private. If you want to put your name, your social, your phone number, and your address, that's fine. You can get the stalkers. I don't want them. I don't want anybody causing major problems for me in my life or harming me. If you want to take the risk of somebody coming to the house, to this condo, and hurting you, that's on you. You've been warned not to put your information on there. Your father's told you, I've told you, the police have told you, I'm not sure who else you've told. You might have people already stalking you right now.
Well, there's Michael Scruggs.
So besides him,
That's not a real person. That's just
That's not a
that's
real
just a
person?
prank call
Well,
thing.
The hell it's not, you idiot.
we heard his voice on your phone.
No, that sounds like a prank call thing. And I clicked the
No,
report
no,
thing, and then
no,
it stopped
no,
happening.
no.
It's not.
See,
I don't think it's a real
you
person.
don't even know what's real.
And
You're
it
not
used to
part
be.
of
I used to have that
reality.
number blocked, and it would like do the same thing at random times. And
Yeah.
that's a prank call thing.
Stop.
It's not a. It's,
It's
not.
not.
It's a real.
He's
That's-
been texting your mother. He's real.
And there are other.
I
people
never
who
got any
don't
text
know
messages
about
from
him.
that. I'm pretty sure it's just a verbal
No,
phone
God
prank call
damn,
thing.
get real, you fucking moron.
Because if it was someone who would stalk me, wouldn't they just bother me on my mobile too? Because they, I mean, they did,
Jeffrey,
but they would
Jeffrey,
only call.
If they've reached out
Why
to
didn't
you
they do any
once,
texts?
that's all that's necessary.
Can you have a lucid thought?
It doesn't matter what phone number. The fact is they reached out to you because you put information out there. You caused it. I didn't put your.
Wait, did you list them their number under the
He's
do not
texting
call
your mother
list?
'cause you put her
Because you
number
do have
out
to
there.
do that as part of
Get
the
a
number
fucking
thing.
clue.
Because I did that before, and I was still getting contacted on my other number, which was
Will you
weird.
stop talking?
That's
and
why I think it's
listen?
a prank
You make no
call.
sense.
You make
because it does
zero
get
sense.
through
You're
the do not call
babbling
list.
like a fucking moron.
Well, we've given you a lot of warnings. You know, all you have to do is take them all down, and you're saying no. So that's it.
Yep, he's done. He's going to jail. SSI or not.
She was laughing there too at the end. That bothers me. That's the chime when someone enters and leaves and stuff. But what was I doing before? It was the fever, right? It was may have been. Oh wow, it's been a while. So 8. I think more like 7:30. Well. Okay, it's gonna be like 8:30 or 8. Wait, what was the first number? Okay, 8 to 8:30. And I don't think I took it right then. It would have been 5:40. 3 to 4 hours. We're off an hour ago, just about. Maybe it was more like 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. So I was downstairs. Yeah, that's fine. I can take 2,400 milligrams anyway, so, and it wouldn't be 2,400 milligrams as at once. And this is the medication that I was always told to take. It's the 650 milligram ones. That's what my cardiologist told me. In high school, my grandfather was on the same regiment. I'm actually supposed to be on that most of every day. And they ran tests and things to determine that they were able to do just that for me as a patient and stuff, and my cardiovascular history and health, my like pulmonary history. But you know, that's not for everybody. But for me, that is one of the circumstances. I'm just a bit luckier because of that. Also, my liver is constantly checked anyway due to my epilepsy and medications for that. So, you know, nothing's ever happened. And it's inordinately unlikely since I have never drank alcohol before. And can't be on medication that could affect alcohol or, well, not affect alcohol, but provide the same effects as it, like in the brain, that could cause issues with other medication, like you would have drug interactions and stuff, just because of my epilepsy outright. So it's like a thing that I don't have to think about, and isn't thought of. And those medications tend to be rarer or are like the only solution within their subspecialty or something for certain things, and it's just none of that would apply to me. So I'm you know, I have access to at least that, even if I don't really have access to all the time. Like I used to take like this version of Aleve, I think. The 12-hour one with nothing else in it. Almost every day, twice a day in high school. Because I had to reduce swelling so that I would not snap 2 of my tendons on my knee due to injuries with sports and never having done physical therapy past my initial surgeries for cancer. I just hadn't been physically active enough. And, you know, gauging the physical therapy following that it's a lot of strain for someone in my circumstances, you know, going into the chemotherapy and stuff, which was the focus. So this is still an NSAID, and it still has the ulcer risks for me, at least, because of my history of the serious ones, because of my treatment. So I rarely take it, but like that is just something with that one. I take just this one type of Motrin that I think I'm out of right now, but it's like this type with the actually just has the price on one, but it says 200 milligrams and it's 50 caplets in it, and it's just blank generic but with nothing else in it type, and this was the type that I would have to stick to. And this, I'm supposed to be on this and the acetaminophen like I'm taking at the same time right now for the fever, to really reduce the fever, and I'm not, because I do not have this, and because in general I'm supposed to just stay off of it relatively. I've also had the fever it's seriously high fever now for a week and a half, 2 weeks, close to. And I had slurred speech the other day, and I wasn't even taking this or anything like this. This one, slurred speech. Actually, I don't think I was on this one. That started when I was playing League. Doesn't have that as a warning. So, that's good. It seemed like my physician felt safer with me in my circumstances just doing the high strength 650 milligram, because that's a specific type of the acetaminophen, because of when it starts working, stops working, and the half-life of it in your body, and how that reacts with your liver and stuff. That's what the important part is. So that's what they were. It's not the same thing as Tylenol, but it says like compare it to Tylenol 8 hours. But it's this is just like the base original type. Or maybe base first generic or something like that. It's probably been around for way longer than I've been alive. But that's why they have so much data on it. Enough to be confident about telling a child or even someone just like later parts of high school about it in that regard. And they don't usually say things in that way. But they were super confident. They also had my grandfather's records and history to go off of, though. But and his heart failure that that ended up in his death, and his pacemaker, and his history and study with that. So they had a lot to pull from for me, which I was fortunate on. But I did take just 2, and I didn't even write the time down. It was probably 11:45. Probably, I'm gonna say 11:40 to 11:45. Where's the document? Okay, well, I should remember to rearm and not fall asleep for a whole day this time. Not that it wouldn't have done something, but that I should just do that myself. Let's see what I am right now. I get the gel on the hair, on my forehead for my hair. It doesn't work very well. Expected. Not expected. That's the same as before. No, actually, it's slightly more. Now it's 36.4. And that, from the behind the head test, like the instructions said, that's been usually an entire degree Celsius lower. One whole number, at least. It usually was one every time. But it's gone up. I'm gonna write that down, and then I'll just consider myself that I need to go to sleep and lay down. It says you have to add 0.2 to do just how it's made. So we're just going to assume this is low, and then this is the high. And it's best to err on the side of this the high number being the actual at each time. And this only did it once. I only believe that this was the accurate one because my forehead seems to be registering like so many degrees of a difference that it's not relevant. Actually, I think it would have been under 97 entirely. Like, or wait, was it 97 or is that? What did I write down? 97, yeah, 97. And usually that shows like 90 or like 34 degrees Celsius. And like now that the forehead is showing like 34, 35, and that's obviously incorrect. Since that's been the one from like the 100 times I've checked it, that's been the most accurate overall. And this thing's been extremely accurate compared to and easy just to check. I do have a few others, but I've been trusting this a bit more because of its use case than the one that I'd have to touch physically, and then that would still run into the issue that I've been having sometimes with my hair and the gel and stuff that helps a lot anyway, or sweat and stuff, which is why I got this one. It's a bit more expensive, but it came in handy this time. I hadn't used it until I bought it, or until I use it now, but I got it last the end of last winter. still showing up? Yeah, it is. Okay, so it's 1203, 1203, 2025, 1026, Central Standard Time, October 2025. It's I'm at, my lease condo at 406 Parkview Boulevard, Vanderbilt, Louisiana. Still, in the normal spot I am in my bedroom. I armed the system and stuff like that again. I do believe I'm the only one here, and I'm gonna go to sleep. Especially after confirming my fever again. I took more Tylenol, or acetaminophen, and that's what I'm gonna do.